"Don't seat us near that old woman, she smells like grease," my daughter-in-law announced to the maître d', wrinkling her nose in disgust. My son Brandon laughed and put his arm around her. They had no idea I owned this restaurant and 7 others across New England. What I did next left them bankrupt and alone. "I'm so glad you're here with me today. Please stay until the end to hear how this all unfolded, and let me know what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel." I had been looking forward to Thanksgiving weekend for months. At 67 years old, I didn't get many chances to spend real time with my son Brandon and his family. When he called suggesting we all meet at Sullivan's Table in Boston, my flagship restaurant, though he didn't know that, my heart soared. Maybe this would be the weekend I finally bonded with Ashley, his wife of 6 years, and got to know my grandchildren Emma and Lucas better. The 2-hour drive from Providence felt longer than usual. I kept rehearsing conversations in my head, ways to connect with Ashley that wouldn't trigger her usual cold responses. I wore my nicest sweater, the cashmere one I'd been saving, and even had my hair done at the salon. I wanted everything to be perfect. When I arrived at Sullivan's Table, the familiar warmth of seeing my life's work filled me with pride. I had opened this restaurant 32 years ago with my late husband Patrick, just a small Irish pub with home-cooked meals. After he died of a heart attack when Brandon was 15, I threw myself into the business. I worked the kitchen, the bar, the floor, whatever it took. Slowly, I expanded. 1 location became 2, then 4, then 8. Sullivan's Table became synonymous with upscale comfort food across New England. But I'd kept it all secret from Brandon. After Patrick died, I saw how money changed people. I saw friends' children who only visited when they needed something. I wanted Brandon to love me for who I was as his mother, not for what I could give him. So I lived modestly, drove an older car, wore simple clothes. I let him think I was just getting by on Patrick's life insurance and my Social Security. The hostess, Amy, saw me walk in, and her eyes widened. She knew exactly who I was. I'd hired her myself 3 years ago, but I gave her a subtle shake of my head. Not yet. I wasn't ready for Brandon to know. I waited near the entrance, watching the dinner crowd. The restaurant was packed, as always on holiday weekends. The exposed brick walls, the warm lighting, the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses, it was everything I'd worked for. Then I saw them. Brandon, tall and handsome, in an expensive suit. Ashley, blonde and polished in designer everything, her face perfectly made up. And my grandchildren, 10-year-old Emma and 8-year-old Lucas, both glued to their tablets as they walked. "Mom!" Brandon gave me a quick, distracted hug. "You made it." "Hi, sweetie," I said, reaching out to hug Ashley. She turned slightly, offering only her shoulder. "Margaret," she said coolly. She never called me Mom, or even Maggie like everyone else did. Always Margaret, like I was a distant acquaintance. "Grandma!" Emma looked up from her tablet for half a second before returning to her screen. "Hey," Lucas mumbled, not looking up at all. Brandon approached the maître d' stand where Amy waited. "Reservation for Carter. We should have the private dining room." Amy checked her computer. "I have your reservation, Mr. Carter, for our main dining room. Unfortunately, the private room is booked tonight." I watched Ashley's face harden. "Here it comes," I thought. "That's unacceptable," Ashley said sharply. "Do you know who my husband is? He's Brandon Carter, the Brandon Carter. We can't sit with common people." Amy remained professional, though I could see her grip tighten on her podium. "I apologize, Mrs. Carter, but the private room has been reserved for weeks. I have a lovely table by the window with—" "I don't want your explanations," Ashley interrupted, her voice rising. Several diners turned to look. "I want what I asked for, now." I stepped forward, hoping to calm things down. "Ashley, maybe we could—" She spun on me, her face twisted with anger. "Stay out of this, Margaret. This doesn't concern you." "Ashley, please," I said quietly. "Let's just enjoy dinner together." "Don't you dare tell me what to do," she hissed. Then she turned to Amy and pointed at me. "And don't seat us anywhere near that old woman. She probably can't even afford to eat here. She smells like grease and old people." The words hung in the air. I felt my cheeks burn as conversations around us stopped. People were staring now, some openly, others pretending not to notice. Brandon threw his head back and laughed. "Oh my God, Ashley, you're terrible. But you're not wrong, Mom. No offense, but did you just come from cleaning someone's kitchen or something?" The betrayal cut deeper than Ashley's words. This was my son. The boy I'd raised alone after losing Patrick. The boy I'd worked 18-hour days for, making sure he never went without. And he was standing there, laughing at his wife's cruelty. "Brandon," I said, my voice shaking, "that's your mother you're talking about." He waved a hand dismissively. "Mom, come on. Don't be so sensitive. We're just kidding around. Besides, you know Ashley likes things a certain way." "Ma'am," Amy said softly, her voice kind but professional. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable waiting at the bar while we sort out the seating?" Before I could answer, Ashley let out a theatrical groan. "Yes, please take her somewhere else. She's embarrassing us. And make sure someone keeps an eye on her. She tends to wander and get confused at her age." More laughter from Brandon. Around us, I heard whispers and saw phones being raised. Someone was recording this. My humiliation was about to go viral. I met Amy's eyes. She looked stricken, torn between her professional duty and her loyalty to me. I gave her the smallest nod. Not yet. I picked up my purse and walked toward the bar, my back straight despite wanting to run from the building and never return. Behind me, I could hear Ashley still complaining about the seating, her voice carrying across the restaurant. At the bar, I ordered a glass of water and sat on a stool, trying to process what had just happened. Marco, the bartender who'd been with me for 12 years, slid the water across to me with a sympathetic look. "Boss," he said quietly, "just say the word." I shook my head. "Not yet." 20 minutes later, Amy appeared at my elbow. "Mrs. Sullivan, the party is seated. Table 42, by the window." "Thank you, Amy." "For what it's worth," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Everyone in the kitchen is ready to quit if you don't let us throw them out." I managed a smile. "I appreciate that. But not yet." I made my way to table 42. Brandon and Ashley had the best seats, facing the restaurant and the sunset view through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Emma and Lucas sat on either side of them, tablets propped up against the water glasses. There was one empty chair left, the one with its back to everything, facing the wall. Nobody looked up when I sat down. "Mom, we already ordered drinks," Brandon said, not taking his eyes off his phone. "Ashley wants to eat and get out of here quickly. She has a spa appointment in the morning." "That's fine," I said. "How was your drive?" "Fine," he said. Ashley didn't even acknowledge I'd spoken. When the waiter came, Jason, one of my newest hires, Ashley ordered for everyone without asking what anyone else wanted. "The kids will have chicken fingers, plain, no seasoning. Brandon and I will have the filet mignon, medium rare, and make sure it's actually medium rare this time. Last time we were here, it was practically mooing." I'd never hired Jason to take their order last time. In fact, I knew for certain this was Ashley's first time at Sullivan's table. She was lying to sound important. "And for you, ma'am?" Jason asked me. "I'll have the shepherd's pie, please." Ashley snorted. "Of course you will. The cheapest thing on the menu." "Ashley," I started. "What?" "It's true. Brandon, didn't you say your mom is barely scraping by? That you've been having to help her with bills?" My head snapped toward my son. "You told her what?" Brandon shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, I explained that you're on a fixed income and sometimes things are tight. There's nothing wrong with that." "But that's not true," I said carefully. "I've never asked you for money." "Exactly," Ashley interjected. "You're too proud to ask. That's why Brandon just handles it for you. He's been paying your rent for the last 3 years. Your utilities, too." My mouth went dry. "What?" Brandon wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom, can we not do this here?" "You told her you've been supporting me financially?" I pressed. "Because I have been," he said, a defensive edge in his voice. "You live in that tiny apartment. You drive that old car. Obviously you need help." I lived in a modest condo by choice, paid in full. I drove a 10-year-old Honda because I liked it and saw no reason to waste money on expensive cars. But my son had created an entire narrative where I was a charity case he was nobly supporting. "Brandon, I don't need your money. I've never needed your money." Ashley rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go. Margaret, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Lots of old people live in poverty. At least you have a son generous enough to help. I'm not living in poverty, I said firmly. Mom, please, Brandon said. Let's just have a nice dinner. Dinner was not nice. Ashley criticized every dish that came out, sent her steak back twice, and made the waiter measure the wine pour to ensure she wasn't being cheated. She snapped at Emma for slouching and told Lucas he was getting fat. And through it all, Brandon said nothing. He just nodded along, checked his phone, and occasionally laughed at Ashley's mean-spirited jokes. When Emma tried to tell me about her dance recital, Ashley cut her off. Emma, Grandma Margaret doesn't want to hear about your little hobbies. She's too old to understand modern dance. I'd love to hear about it, I said to Emma, but Ashley had already changed the subject. After dinner, Brandon pulled out his credit card. Let me get this. No, I said. Please, let me. Mom, don't be ridiculous, he said, not unkindly. You can't afford a place like this. I've got it. He handed his card to Jason without even looking at the bill. I knew it would be over $600. My son was paying for dinner at my own restaurant, with money I suspected he didn't actually have, while believing he was doing me a favor. So, Ashley said as we waited for the check, Brandon and I were talking. We think it might be time for you to consider moving into a senior community. My stomach dropped. What? It's not a nursing home or anything, Brandon said quickly. Just a place where there are people your age, activities, medical care on site. You'd have your own apartment, but with support nearby. I don't need support, I said. I'm perfectly capable. Mom, you're 67, Brandon said. You're not getting any younger. What happens when you can't take care of yourself anymore? We can't just drop everything to take care of you. We have our own lives, Ashley added. Our own children to raise. We can't be expected to sacrifice everything because you refuse to plan for your old age properly. I have planned, I said, struggling to keep my voice calm. I'm healthy. I'm active. For now, Ashley said. But what about when you're not? What about when you can't remember to take your pills, or you fall and break a hip? Ashley's actually been researching places, Brandon said. There's a really nice facility about an hour outside the city. It's affordable, government subsidized. You want to put me in a government home? The words came out sharper than I intended. It's not like that, Brandon said. It's clean. It's safe. It's for poor people who have nobody. I finished. Is that really what you think of me? Margaret, don't be dramatic, Ashley said. We're trying to help you. The least you could do is be grateful. I looked at my grandchildren, hoping for some support, some sign that they disagreed with their parents. But Emma and Lucas never looked up from their screens. They'd been trained not to see me as a real person. Think about it, Brandon said as Jason returned with the credit card receipt. We can go visit some places next month. It'll be fun. Fun. They thought warehousing me in a cut-rate facility would be fun. We said our goodbyes in the parking lot. Ashley didn't hug me. Brandon gave me another quick, distracted embrace. The children waved without looking at me. We'll see you at Christmas, Brandon called as they got in their Mercedes, a car I now suspected they couldn't actually afford. I watched them drive away, then walked back into my restaurant. The entire staff was waiting for me in the kitchen. Marco, Amy, Jason, my head chef Teresa, all of them looked ready to riot. Mrs. Sullivan, Teresa said, her voice tight with anger. Just give us the word and I'll put anchovies in everything she orders for the rest of her life. Despite everything, I smiled. Not yet. When then? Marco demanded. Did you hear the things she said to you? I heard, I said quietly. Believe me, I heard every word. So what are we going to do? Amy asked. I thought about Brandon's lies, about Ashley's cruelty, about my grandchildren who'd been taught to see me as a burden. I thought about the senior facility they wanted to dump me in, about how they spoke to my staff, about the elaborate fiction they'd constructed where I was a pathetic old woman dependent on their charity. We're going to wait, I said finally, but start documenting everything, every reservation they make, every bill, every complaint. I want a complete record. Boss, Teresa said carefully, what are you planning? I'm not sure yet, I admitted. But when I figure it out, I want to make sure I have all my facts straight. Over the next 3 weeks, I learned things about my son that broke my heart. Through my restaurant network, because yes, restaurant owners talk to each other. I discovered that Brandon had been opening credit cards in my name, not to help me, but to fund his lifestyle. The bills went to his address, and he'd been paying the minimum while telling me he was taking care of my finances. I found out that he'd taken out a second mortgage on his house, using me as a co-signer without my knowledge. My forged signature was on the documents. I learned that Ashley's influencer career was a money pit. She spent thousands on designer clothes and beauty treatments, posting them on social media to maintain the illusion of wealth while they drowned in debt. And I discovered that they'd been telling their friends I was senile, that I made up stories about owning restaurants because I was ashamed of being poor, that they were nobly caring for their delusional mother-in-law out of the goodness of their hearts. The final straw came on a cold December evening, 3 weeks after Thanksgiving. I was at Sullivan's table, reviewing the books in my private office, when Amy knocked on the door. "Mrs. Sullivan, your son and daughter-in-law are here. They're asking for you." My heart leapt. Maybe they wanted to apologize. Maybe Brandon had come to his senses. I should have known better. I found them in the main dining room with another couple I didn't recognize. Ashley was holding court at a prominent table, her voice carrying across the restaurant as usual. "The thing about old people," she was saying, "is that they become like children. You have to manage them. Brandon's mother, for example, she actually thinks she's important. She tells these elaborate stories about owning restaurants." The other woman made a sympathetic sound. "That must be so hard for you." "It is," Ashley said with theatrical weariness. "But what can you do? We can't just abandon her, even though she's a complete financial drain on us. Brandon's been supporting her for years. Her rent, her food, her medical bills, it all comes out of our pocket." "You're saints," the other man said. Brandon laughed. "We try. Though honestly, it's getting to be too much. That's why we're looking into facilities for her. Something affordable where trained staff can deal with her delusions." "How sad," the woman said. "Does she have any money at all?" "Nothing," Ashley said firmly. "She worked as a cleaning lady her whole life, never saved a penny. Now she's Brandon's burden." I'd heard enough. I walked straight to their table. Ashley saw me first, and her face registered annoyance before settling into fake concern. "Margaret, what are you doing here?" "I work here," I said simply. She exchanged a glance with her friends, the kind that said, "See what I mean? Yes, we know you picked up a hostess job. That's actually what we wanted to talk to you about." "We think you should quit," Brandon said. "You're too old to be working. What if you fall or have a heart attack?" "Besides," Ashley added, "it's embarrassing. Brandon's colleagues might come here. What would they think, seeing his mother working as minimum wage help?" I looked at my son. Really looked at him, searching for any sign of the boy I'd raised, the boy who used to help me prep vegetables in the restaurant kitchen, who used to be proud of his hard-working mother. He was gone. In his place was a man who'd rather lie and steal than admit his mother was successful. "You're right," I said quietly. "We need to talk. But not here. Come with me." I led them to my private office, Amy right behind us. The unknown couple tried to follow, but I shut the door in their faces. "Mom, what's this about?" Brandon asked, impatience in his voice. "Sit down," I said. Something in my tone made them both sit. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside were all the documents I'd compiled over the last 3 weeks, credit card statements, the forged mortgage papers, screenshots of social media posts where they'd lied about me, and most importantly, the deed to Sullivan's Table and all 7 other Sullivan's restaurants. "Let's start with the truth," I said. "Brandon, you told Ashley and your friends that you've been supporting me financially." "Because I have," he started. "No," I interrupted. "You've been stealing from me. You've opened credit cards in my name without my permission. You forged my signature on mortgage documents. That's identity theft and fraud." His face went white. "Mom, I can explain." "Explain to the police," I said. "Because that's where these documents are going." "You wouldn't," he said, but his voice shook. "Try me." Ashley stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You don't have any money. You're delusional, just like we told everyone. Come on, Brandon, we don't have to listen to this." "Actually, you do," Amy said from her position by the door. Because Mrs. Sullivan doesn't just work here. She owns this restaurant. She owns all the Sullivan's table locations. The color drained from Ashley's face. That's impossible. I pulled out the deeds, spreading them on the desk. 8 restaurants across New England. Total valuation, approximately $45 million, all wholly owned by me. Brandon stared at the documents, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. But, you said, you lived in that small apartment. By choice, I said. I've been comfortable my entire adult life. But I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I have. Clearly, that was a mistake. Mom, if you'd just told me. Told you what? That you could steal more effectively? That you could feel even more entitled to money you didn't earn? Ashley found her voice, though it came out shrill. You let us think you were poor. You let us pay for dinners. You insisted on paying, I corrected. Against my wishes, with money you stole using my identity. This is entrapment, she said wildly. You set us up. I documented your behavior, I said. There's a difference. Now, here's what's going to happen. Brandon, you're going to turn yourself in to the police for identity theft and fraud. You'll make full restitution for everything you stole. Mom, please, I'm not finished. Ashley, you're going to issue a public statement retracting every lie you told about me, every social media post, every conversation with friends, all of it. I won't, she said defiantly. Then I'll sue you for defamation, and I'll win. Ask any lawyer. They stared at me, finally seeing me clearly for the first time in years. As for your financial situation, I continued, I'm done bailing you out. No more forged credit cards. No more fraudulent loans. You're on your own. But the house? Brandon started. You'll lose it, I said flatly. That's what happens when you take out mortgages you can't afford. You'll have to downsize, budget, actually work for your money instead of stealing it from your mother. What about Emma and Lucas? Ashley demanded. What about your grandchildren? What about them? I asked. You taught them to see me as worthless. You used them as props while you humiliated me. Maybe losing everything will teach them, and you, the value of honesty and respect. Brandon dropped his head into his hands. Mom, please. We made mistakes, but we're family. You can't just cut us off. Can't I? I said. You were planning to dump me in a government facility and forget about me. You told people I was senile. You stole my identity. You laughed while your wife publicly humiliated me. Tell me, Brandon, what exactly is family about that? He had no answer. You have until tomorrow to decide, I said. Turn yourselves in and make this right, or I go to the police myself and press charges. Your choice. I opened the office door. Amy, please escort Mr. and Mrs. Carter out of my restaurant. They're no longer welcome here. That night, alone in my condo, my paid-off, comfortable, chosen-by-me condo, I cried. Not for losing my son, because in truth, I'd lost him years ago. I cried for the boy he used to be, for the relationship we might have had if he'd been honest, for the grandchildren I barely knew. But I also felt something else. Relief, freedom. For the first time in years, I didn't have to pretend to be less than I was. I didn't have to make myself small to make others comfortable. Brandon and Ashley did turn themselves in. The legal proceedings took months, but eventually, Brandon pleaded guilty to identity theft and fraud. He got probation and community service and had to pay back every penny he'd stolen, which meant selling their Mercedes, downsizing to a modest apartment, and actually working for a living. Ashley's influencer career collapsed when the truth came out. Brands don't want to work with someone exposed as a liar and a bully. She had to get a real job for the first time in her life. I haven't spoken to either of them since that night in my office. I won't lie and say it doesn't hurt. It does. Every single day. But I've reconnected with friends I'd neglected while trying to maintain peace with Brandon. I've hired 3 new managers at my restaurants, which gives me more free time to volunteer at a women's shelter. I've started taking trips, real vacations, not weekend obligations where I'm treated like the help. And I've learned something important. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. I have my staff who genuinely care about me. I have my success, earned through hard work and sacrifice. I have my dignity, which I should never have compromised. 6 months after everything fell apart, I got a letter from Emma. She's 12 now, old enough to understand what really happened. She apologized for ignoring me, for believing the lies her parents told. She asked if she could visit sometime, just the two of us. I said yes, because while I've cut off Brandon and Ashley, my grandchildren deserve a chance to know their grandmother, the real me, not the fiction their parents created. This story is based on real events, though names and details have been changed. I'm sharing it not for sympathy, but because I know I'm not alone. How many mothers are suffering in silence? How many people are making themselves small to keep the peace? If you're in my situation, I want you to know, you don't have to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's story. You don't have to accept cruelty to maintain family bonds. And you are never too old to stand up for yourself. I spent years being afraid that if my son knew about my success, he'd only love me for my money. Turns out, he tried to take it anyway. At least now I know the truth. And the truth, painful as it is, has set me free. God bless you all. And remember, you are worth fighting for, even if you have to do the fighting yourself.